The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown.
Do you ever feel like you're being watched?
Do you believe in cryptids?
Have you ever seen one?
Supernatural or cryptid? What is it? Are they friend and foe? A white guy. Have you ever had an experience with something unidentifiable? Are you afraid to tell your story?
Don't be, because we're here to listen.
We are the Southern Appalachia Sasquatch Sinkers.
Hello, everybody. we were not here for a couple of weeks and everything just fell apart. No. Okay, I think I found what the problem was. Can you hear me, Eric?
I can.
Okay. The two windows were open. My fault. Okay. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for showing up. We appreciate y'all.
We had a trip and some other things going on, so we had to take a little bit of a break, and I didn't fall apart, at least this time when we first came back, so that's a plus. Let's recognize a few of our people here real quick. Gary is on here, and Dog. I don't know if Woodwalkers is off yet or not, so some people may still be over there. Skidder Operator, I'm going to get back in touch with you. I know we got some more shows to do with you, and we'll be talking to you soon. And the Daddy 1945, Richard, welcome. And Roger Holler. Stacy's in here. And Stacy said Spencer's wrapping up right now, so y'all just deserted him because he was finishing up. He'll understand.
And Hillary. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Hillary. I'm sorry.
Black Rock.
Everybody's coming in. We appreciate y'all joining us.
We do.
And we've got a guest that you all know, a person that's really knowledgeable and does the foot, the boots on the ground. And that's what it takes to get anywhere with this. And Mr. Eric Tipton is our guest for tonight. And we'll wait till the end. Or do you mind doing the questions through the podcast, Eric, or would you rather wait till the end?
That's up to you guys. We can do either or.
Okay, we'll do them as we go. If we missed yours, put it back in or something, because he may be right in the middle of something when you put it up. So,
and make sure you put it all in caps.
Yes, and put it all in caps. Get pop-ups now. I talked to Eric the other day, actually, when we were on the last trip, on our trip. We're not going to go into this right now. We're going to do something else, but I wanted to kind of let you know, if you saw him when he and Kane did a show at Kane's cabin, and Eric got to talking about some of the supernatural stuff that he had went through. We got talking about it up there on the trip, and we're going to go into that some too at the end. For me, I think it all kind of goes together, and I think a lot of people have the same opinion. Eric and I talked about it, and I think he does too, but he can speak for himself. But um, Eric, let's just start out. I don't know that anybody's ever asked you just how you got started in this.
Um, how I actually got started was Kane and I worked together for many years, and on job sites, longevity job sites, we kind of carpool together. So he and I would meet up at a particular place here in Columbus, and then drive out to the job site. And this job itself took, I think it was like a year and a half project, and so throughout that time, um, you obviously working together on the job site and driving to and from, you get to know each other pretty well, and found we had a lot of same interests, and with cryptid and religion views, and just a wide array of things. And one day I just decided, years ago, I had a sighting, and way back then it was still very taboo. And if you spoke about it, you were ridiculed and the whole 9 yards. So I tucked it away, as many people do. And I finally decided, though, with Kane and I riding together and stuff, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna tell him. So I told him what I'd seen years ago, and yeah, he was like, well, let's go find him. So that took me on a journey for about almost a year, of he and I both just kind of trying to absorb as much information as we could, um, on the internet, and looking up like past history, all the way back here in Ohio, Ohio-based history, and all the way back into the native culture, and then we started going out, and not knowing what the heck we were looking for at all. We would literally, just drive down to Wayne National, or drive, out towards Salt Fork. Um, we would check our compass. We'd park the truck, check our compass, and we just blaze our own trails through the woods. And eventually, things started catching our eyes, of not knowing if it was Mother Nature, human manipulation, or something other than both of those. So, and this was a very long process. So that's really what got us into it, was with me sparking the conversation of, what I'd seen so many years ago, and then bringing it to the forefront. And then Kane being who Kane is, and you guys know Kane. And so yeah, that's really what sparked it, and we've been running ever since.
Let me ask you a question right there. The first time that you had the sighting,
Mhm.
what did you think they were on first view?
So so I've had what I consider, I have my full on sighting. That is my true sighting. Now, years ago, I had one in a ditch line. It was dark, and we had driven past it in the dark, but there was no mistaking of what. Once you got up on it in the car with the headlight high beams on, there was the mass was so big, and it had full definition. So it just happened so fast. We drove past it, and it was gone, but there was clearly no mistaking of what was in the dish line. What I had seen after Kane and I started researching together, that was a full blown daylight, middle of the day sighting. Eye to eye, roughly 100 yards out, which really isn't that far when you put it into the mass of what I saw.
Mhm.
Um, And up to that point, though, we were stagnant. Kane and I were very, very stagnant and stale in our research. We were hitting a solid wall, and we just felt like we weren't gaining any ground of collecting data, and nothing was really popping at us, and moving forward with our research. And that was a very long time. That was a huge drought of our research when this took place, to the point to where we were really looking at pulling stakes, and this was after 5 years in this area of solid research, and we were literally looking at pulling stakes, even though we knew they were there. They hadn't left, and we were getting interaction. It wasn't that we weren't getting any type of interaction. We weren't getting data. We weren't getting things to teach us, anything of habit that we were prior to. Everything kind of just stopped, and we were trying to go to that next level of getting more information that we could gather, and it just kind of stopped. And yeah, we were looking at completely leaving the area altogether when this took place. So, um, and that, in itself, that's when I realized up until that point, they were a North American grade A, flesh and blood, nothing else. If you tried to talk to me about them being anything other than, I shut you down. 100%, I would shut you off, until that happened. Once the very first thing that hit me was characteristic. There was there was there was way too much characteristic, human characteristic within the subject. Was the first thing, and then I flipped the switch very quickly on thinking just a North American grade A. And then I went straight to absolutely not. There's something more here. There's something more to them with their characteristics, their traits, and I need to learn what that is. I need to, and that catapulted. It really reignited the fuel and the flame for us to then just push even harder. So
Um, I don't. I think it doesn't take too long for anyone. I'm sure some people still have the great act theory, but I think most people who have anything that happens at all, you start realizing that that's probably not what it is. I agree with you. I mean, I never did think that's what it was, uh, but most people do. They just think it's an ape in the woods, an undiscovered ape.
yeah, and it's I beat myself up a lot now because I consider myself now, years later, I do consider myself a cryptozoologist because of the scientific side that Kane and I instilled it from the very beginning of trying to keep this as scientific as possible. You know, and I beat myself up now because as a cryptozoologist, you have to, even though you may not believe it, even though it could be the furthest thing from your mind or whatever. As a person that researches the subject and considers himself a scientific like-minded individual, you have to you have to you have to indulge everything, and you have to at least look at it. If I'm going to say no, that's not that I don't believe that, I have to have reason for that. Up to that point, I didn't have reason. All I had was my own ignorance and ego of saying no, it's nothing but a grade eight, and that's all it was ignorance and ego. That's all it was. So now it's how could I have been so close minded and not at least looking at it and trying to at least see if what I'm hearing from other people holds any type of water. instead of just completely shutting them out. You know, and so I do. I beat myself up with that a lot now, but you know,
Well, I,
it's
I wouldn't beat myself up too bad because I think most people do to start with. You know, that's what they think it is, and that's fed from TV and other things too. You know, um, but more like but you can't just stop there. You've got to get out and do the research just like y'all did.
yeah,
And
yeah, and it does. It once again too. I honestly believe also though, if I wouldn't have seen it, I still believe my research would have forced me to evolve and start changing. It may have happened slower, obviously, than having this ID, but I believe that eventually my mindset would have changed irregardless.
uh,
Because if you are out there looking for answers, you are throughout the years, your mindset's going to change. Your thought process is going to change along the way.
Yeah.
And you have now. I say that as in being an open-minded individual now, more so than earlier on, but an open-minded individual of now understanding that there is more to this subject than just this, you know, of flesh and blood, just a grade eight. If any of that makes sense.
yeah,
So
well,
yeah, my mindset, I'm in a much better place now of understanding because of things that have happened out there that I can't explain, but now I have witnessed it myself.
without giving anything away that you don't want to, can you give some examples of the things that helped change your mind, the things that you saw? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, you know, I have dove in this before on other shows that there's logic behind what they do. There's reasoning behind things that they leave. It's not just sticks put together, and I'm not by no means. I am not saying every bend, twist, break, X, whatever is created by these
Right.
by this subject. Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, what we have found and what Kane and I believe, what's out there and what's seen, and I'll say structure, what's seen structure wise is very limited to what is being posted on social media and individuals claiming this subject is doing all of these structures. It's few and far between. But what we're finding in certain ones that there's information within them that you can use. We did a video of it. We literally went documented this. Went on a 5-day excursion. I took everything that I know on my tracking background and put it to the side. Didn't use any type of tracking ability that I use on a day to day at all. And we went solely off of what we knew certain structures gave us. And we followed this for 5 days. We threw on our backpacks at his cabin and traveled 5 days and solely on structure to structure to structure
Mhm.
on a certain heading. And we did it. We absolutely did it. So there's meaning. There's a thought process there this subject it has a mindset, an ability to do this. Um, for me, that's a high level of intelligence. You know, just because they're not wearing clothes and driving cars doesn't mean they're not an intelligent creature. Gorillas, chimps, orangutans. Every creature is an intelligent creature being, in their own sense, in their own way. So it just gave us that we are dealing with high intelligent creature, highly intelligent creature.
What did the first that one that you said you saw just like head on like face on? What did it look like?
It was very native looking, high brow ridge, very the bone structure uh, was very prominent. Um, the skin itself had like a Middle Eastern complexion to it, dark complexion to it. It was very tight skinned, almost leather, very tight. Um, but it was more the facial feature of when it realized I was standing there looking at it. And when it come up from underneath the tree, pushing the branch away and coming straight up, as it was coming straight up, we locked eyes, and he came all the way up, and his head went back, and I've told hundreds of people he literally had like an oh crap look to his face, like I just screwed up, like his face just dropped off. I mean, he went back, his eyes went wide, but it was like his face just dropped off. Like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Like you're supposed to be gone, dude. What are you doing? He had that look, and there was no aggression from him at all. He was stunned. He was stunned. He knew our routine. Like I said, we had been going there for 5 years. He knew our routine. That day was completely different than any other day. So we were supposed to be gone. That day we were waiting for the girls to come and pick us up. So we weren't supposed to be there. And when he came up, here I am staring right at him. And he literally had that look like, damn. So,
Well, did you actually see the tracks he left, or were you able to
yeah.
did you find
Uh,
any other size tracks around there at all? Different
yeah.
sizes?
So at that time of deciding, I mean, I won't go into all of it. I've explained it before, but it was a huge emotional roller coaster. I was not engaged with the world around me. So after it had disappeared, we're back up at the bridge. I'm just numb. I mean, my brain's on melt. Kane is adamant. We got to go out. We got to go out there. We got to go out there. And I'm just whatever, dude. I'm staying right here. And so he treks out into the marsh. He finds where he was standing. He raises. You can't even see the marsh. I'm 6'1". The marsh is up to the top of the weeds in the marsh are at my chest. What I saw of it was from the waist up.
Mm.
So Kane, I couldn't even see. His little hobbit butt, I couldn't see him at all. So he had to pick a stick up and wave it for me to tell him left, right, forward, back, whatever, at the tree. All of a sudden he hollers, dude, you have to come out. You have to come out. So I make my way out there, and when it had turned and stepped down into the channel, it stepped into the mud, and there was his impression. His impression of his foot, which I casted. I did have it sent out. It came back as a non-human bipedal. But I did track back through the marsh, and we had found where it traveled through the marsh. Once the cast dried, um, I took that cast and we trekked back through the marsh, and every other step was that print all the way back to where he came down out of the woods, dropped down off the ridge, and went across the road into the marsh. We tracked him all the way back to the road with that impression. After
Oh,
that, yes, we had found, and he wasn't the opposite. He was not the alpha. We found a print much larger than his.
Oh, sorry.
Skeeter operator asked, have you ever had, and I know some of this, but and I think it's more at Canes, but have you ever had any follow you home where you live? I mean, I don't know, but
No, I'm an hour and a half away from that area. I'm 40 minutes from Kane. Um, Kane's, his where he's at now. There is activity, um, sporadic activity where he used to live. In the show he just did for Monster Quest. I was actually on the phone with him when the day leading up to the evening that they followed him home. I was on the phone with him back when he was back in the woods behind his house, having things happen to him. So I haven't personally. Now being out there, yes, the way that Kane and I research and going in the way that we go and hammock camping in the hot spots themselves, in the research areas themselves, obviously they're going to come right in on top of you, and check you out, so, but no, personally, I've
can you see the comment from question from Kumbo?
no, do you think he was alone? So if you're speaking the day of my sighting, we know we went in, we did our research. We knew that there was three with us that day, throughout the whole course of the day, which is also documented. This is where coming from tracking, coming from that background, I pay very close attention to movement and sound. It's what I do. This is where I learned you hear so many people say they know where you're at all times. You'll never ever be able to hide from them. You'll never be able to. They'll always know where you're at. Me witnessing it, that's a wrong statement. We got to the point to where we had one in front of us, one on the ridge to the right of us, one on the ridge to the left of us, as we were doing our research, and we were getting small things, little whoops, little chatter, little. It wasn't rock clacking, so I associate it with tongue clacking, but very light. We were getting little acorns thrown at us, little pebbles thrown at us, nothing major. Let me step back a second. The only major occurrence we had that day was at the very beginning when we first got up to the first ridge of our research area before we drop down and then go up the second ridge. We get to the top of the first ridge. I had downloaded um, uh, lowland gorilla sounds, silverback sounds. One was a mating, one was like a playful, the other one was an aggression, a challenge call. And I had my Bluetooth hand speaker with me. I decided to do the aggression challenge call. I blast this thing off. Unknown to me, and Kane in true fashion is standing right behind me. I blast this sound. As soon as it's over, you get the gorilla chest. Kane had pulled his shirt up and smacked his chest. And it was, but it scared. I didn't know what he was doing. It scared the crap out of me. But it was perfect. I mean, he had his hands cupped perfectly, and it just echoed. And as soon as it was over, as soon as the can speaker got done playing, he did that on the second ridge. You get pop pop, oh, and then we watched.
Kind of chest popping.
Yeah,
Okay.
but then you hear this pop pop crack, and we get this branch that is like 5 foot long and maybe 8 to 10 inches in circumference. We get it thrown off the ridge towards us and down the ridge. No grunts, no growls, no nothing. That was it. That was Okay, well, you got that. Here's what I have. Yeah. So, so yes, but there were three with us. And so when we go in, we're getting the little pops, the little whoops, chatter, things tossed at us, whatever. Finally, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do something. I want to see something. And we were getting ready to walk into this really thick, dense brush, high brush. So we started making our way in, and I tell Kane, I'm like, stop, and just drop to the ground, and don't move. I don't want no sound. I don't want no movement. And we just hit the ground, and we sat there for like 40 minutes, not a sound, and you could start hearing them getting agitated. They knew the area we were in, but they lost us. They lost sight of us. They didn't know where we were. They had an area of where we were. They could not pinpoint us. Then we started getting the huffs from the ridge to the left of us. I figured that being the more dominant male or female, I don't know which one of the three, because that one was being more boisterous and giving the grunts and the frustration and the pacing back and forth and smacking branches, smacking trees, and going back and forth. And it was frustrated because it lost them. It had no idea where we were. And that was a huge learning experience for me. Like, I can do this. I can do this. They'll know where I am in a sense of area, but I can disappear on them. I can lose them. I can get to a spot where they won't know where exactly I am at. And that was a huge experience for me. Huge experience.
A relief too, I'm sure, when things
Yeah.
get hot.
When you were talking about the cane popping his chest and stuff, and then the return back, did it sound like maybe it was like on their chest, and then maybe they hit wood or something?
Oh no, it didn't pop its chest back out. Kane did the chest pop, and then it broke a branch. And this branch was like crack, crack,
Oh, okay.
and then it threw it.
Okay.
So, which is another thing we have learned through the years, and it's a terminology that he and I use of what we call a controlled break. A branch falling, a tree falling in the woods, a branch, snap, snap, break, and then fall, and you can hear it fall, hit
Yes.
the ground. A tree the same way, hitting other trees coming down, same way. A controlled break is no sound. A controlled break is pop, pop, crack, and nothing. Silence. You don't hear it fall to the ground. You don't hear the hitting the ground. Nothing. That's a controlled break. That's something to pay attention to. When you hear branches break all the time in the woods, trees fall all the time in the woods, pay attention to that controlled sound. When you don't hear it coming down off the tree, when you don't hear it hitting the ground, that's a controlled break. That's being manipulated by something holding it and controlling it.
Exactly. And yes, Spencer, we agree 100% with you.
Well-
Everybody's got their own reasoning and stuff, but we agree with your comment.
Hands down, more boots on the ground time.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
So and that's going to make a difference with anything you're doing. But I think most people realize that. But that was a good comment, Spencer.
Thank you.
And he said he's talking about breaking wood 8 to 10 degrees in diameter takes massive power.
Huge power.
Yeah.
Huge power. So and to go back, as we were leaving, we walked about midway up that ridge. So when we were leaving that day, we were being parallel from the left ridge. So coming out, that ridge was on our right, and we were halfway down on the shelf, walking that shelf out. So we did not, and we were talking about this on our way out. We purposely were looking for a dead tree, something that this branch was broken off of. We did not see one tall ash, oak, pine, nothing that was dead. They were all very much green. So this branch was broke from a live tree that was tossed off that ridge. But irregardless, that's massive strength.
Yes, exactly.
Um, you and I talked about ahead of time, kind of where we want to go. Um, I don't know if you want to kind of well, for me, the reason I like to ask because everybody that I've spoke with at some time, usually they'll start off as a child things that happen to them. You know, the people that really get into this hardcore. I mean, they have these experiences earlier, or they have other experiences, supernatural, whatever, early in their life. And you had talked about some of this on that show that, like I said, that night with Kane, and but if you are okay to go there right now, then we can come back. I'd like for you to kind of tell about what we talked about up at the camp out.
Yeah. It
Uh,
you kind of I kind of have to go back,
Go ahead.
through the family.
Yes.
Um, everybody has, you know, something that's happened growing up, or families weren't perfect or whatever it was. And I grew up in a very dark family, very dark household. I jokingly I say, my parents were two of the biggest hippies to come out of the '60s. And when you say hippie, you automatically think, um, very non-threat, just peace, love, whatever. And that's my parents were oil and water. They should have never gotten together. Um, he was very dark, very evil, drug related, alcohol. She was very drug related and very mind manipulating individual. And them two together, it was just very dark house. So, um, and this, I found this years later, in speaking with a couple individuals, um, that there are things some people call them family curses. Um, but there's attachments to family names. Certain families that have a lot of negative energy within them may carry this energy with them. And this is the way it was explained to me, that the Tipton name comes from a very dark past. Prior, I'm talking centuries of this. So, but going back to childhood, um, we had very dark presence in the house growing up, um, and it really started one night. Now I'm 12 years old. Um, I'm already in the process of going down the same road as my parents when it comes to drugs and alcohol at 12 years old. Um, so I'm in bed. I've got my back to my door, my bedroom door. Everything's fine. I'm laying there, I'm falling asleep. Out of nowhere, I get this sense come over me that something's standing behind me watching, and it's evil. And it's an evil that I've never ever at 12 years old. I have no idea what this is. It's evil, and that's the only way I can explain it. To the point where I couldn't move. I could not move. I couldn't even tell you about breathing. Um, and all I could do was just stare at the wall, frozen, and it felt like it was an eternity. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I get up and my parents had gone for that weekend, so my grandmother was there watching me and my brother, and I go upstairs, and my grandmother's in the kitchen making breakfast. Doesn't say, I say good morning, grandma. That was it. As I'm getting in the fridge to get milk, she stops cooking. She turns around. She looks at me and she says, "Last night you had a visit. If you don't stop what you're doing now, he will take you." And that was it. That was all she said. And at 12 years old, I'm standing there with a gallon of milk, like, huh? Like, what the hell do I do with this now? But and once again, years later, I didn't understand years later. But so throughout my childhood, throughout my teens, when it all really came to a head, when I left home, I was turning 16. That's where if you've never witnessed evil in its purest form, you can't. I don't think somebody could even imagine. I stood there and watched. My dad was all jacked up on drugs. They're arguing, they're fighting, they're in their bedroom. I hear my mom say, "Don't shoot me, Bobby." So I walk into the hallway, and as I'm stepping into their bedroom, she has her back against the wall right at the bedroom door. In front of her is their bed. So I step in and I step in front of her, and he's got his 45 between his legs, and he's staring at me. And so I'm like, "What are you doing? All this stuff." And then he comes up. So as he's coming up, I just grab her and I just spin and go out into the hallway, and he throws 2 rounds through the wall. So I let her go, and I step back into the bedroom. Now he's back down on the bed, sitting there. So now I'm hollering and screaming at him. And as I'm stepping to him, he comes up and he puts it against my head, and he tilts his head sideways. Now this is, like I said, you can't. I watched this man's facial features change. I literally watched a face change into something else, and his head cocked to the side, and even his mouth, his grin grew to the side, and he said, "Bobby's not here," and he pulled the trigger. And what he didn't know was the last round that he threw into the wall, the casing got lodged in his chamber. My dad was a fanatic over his weapons, kept them clean, everything. I had rapid fired that 45 multiple times and never had a jacket change ever, or get lodged ever. And that one time, he didn't know it. He didn't know to clear the change, and the casing was jammed when he pulled the trigger. So nothing happened, and he just put his arm down. He just smiled and sat back down on the bed, and I was like, "Peace." And that was it. So to that point, very dark things happening, dark shadows happening, doors slamming, the whole 9 yards, lights coming on and off. Um, my mom swore up and down that she had heard voices here and there throughout time of being there. Once I had left, but now I'm full blown on the road, like they are. I'm running drugs and the whole 9 yards. Now I'm on my own, and I have things that are slowly taking place, throughout my life. I get married, um, you know, kids, but I'm still living that other life as well. Throughout our stint of being married, things are taking place in our house now. Um, so, and you learn to just it happens. It's happening. A door open, a door closed, lights will flicker. You'll hear something upstairs move, things like that, constant. Um, to the point to where then once we got divorced, um, I was obviously on my own, living on my own. I get up one morning, getting ready to go to work. Everything's fine. I get out of the shower. I'm standing at the sink, brushing my teeth or whatever, and it was a voice. It was a voice like you're hearing me talk right now. And what I heard was, "It's time." And when I heard "it's time," all of a sudden, I cannot control my body. I hit the floor. I'm shaking. I've got crap coming out of every orifice of my body. I don't know what's happening. It was like if you took every emotion of a human, every single emotion, and you balled it up like an atom, and then just and then it just explodes. That's the feeling I had.
Mm.
I get up, I clean myself up. That was it. Everything that I was doing in my past was gone. I stopped that day, that moment. I stopped. I just quit. I disappeared. I got away from everybody I knew from the past. Everything I was doing in the past was gone that day. Was gone. Um, Dove into work. Started traveling for work. A lot of traveling. This and that. But the little things were still happening. Within my apartment. Um, and then I met Carla. She saved my life. She's my saint. She was handed to me by a higher power,
Yes.
and um, and but now though, we've been married 25 years, and we now though we've lived in three houses since we've been married, and it has gotten substantially lighter than the past. But even here in our new home, we're getting doors that will open, that will close. We'll get sounds from another room. Downstairs, I have a curio cabinet, and I think I shared this with you, Sherry. I have a curio cabinet. It has a lot of Bigfoot stuff in it. And on the second shelf, I have the, a, a couple pictures. I have a wooden block in the middle, and it's holding the picture of the sighting I had, the subject that I saw. Tucked in the back right corner is a picture, and it's wedged in there pretty good. From time to time, I would come home from work, and that picture would be out of the corner and laying face down in the middle in front of the wooden block.
Mm.
And this has happened 3 or 4 times. So finally, I come home. The last time I come home, it's face down in the middle. I pick it up, I pull it out of the curio cabinet, I turn around, I said, "This is mine." And I turn around, I pointed at the curio cabinet. I said, "Everything in this curio cabinet is mine." I said, "You don't effing touch nothing, not one thing." It hasn't moved since. Then the closet door, you come up the stairs and all the way down at the very end of the hallway is a closet. Carla and I are downstairs, and they're old, they're double door, um, wooden slatted doors,
Mhm.
and we're sitting downstairs, and you hear it like somebody, and they've got the little like um, little clasp with the round ball on the door, and it locks into the clasp. So when you pull the door open, when it unhooks, you get that little rattle of the door, will rattle and shake. And that's what it sounded like. It sounded like somebody just kind of popped it open and let it go, and the door swung open and kind of hit the wall. And that's what we heard from downstairs. So I come up, look down the hallway, there it is, wide open. So I go down, I close it. Um, that's happened a couple times. Um, the light in the living room, I am huge on lights. I shut things down when I'm not in the room. I come up from downstairs, all the lights in the living room will be on, or the lights will be off in the living room after I left them, but then my porch lights will be off. Things like that. Um, the last the last light incident was I was downstairs and kicked back my recliner. TV is in front of me like this. Off to the left is a door. You have a laundry room and then adjacent bathroom. The door was closed. You can see it's got the 1 inch air gap underneath it. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden underneath the door the light comes on. So I'm looking at it. Finally I'm like, okay. So I get up out of my chair. I walk over to the door. I don't open it. I walk over. I said, I keep lights off in this house. Turn it off now. It shuts off. So that was the last incident. And that has been probably about 3 weeks ago. Loud sounds in my garage. I've got they're the side metal boxes. I'm sure you've seen them on trucks, the long metal tool boxes on trucks. I have put two of those mounted on my garage wall. And I've got all my camping gear, all my gear, all of that stuff. I'm out in my garage one morning getting ready to go hunting. I got my back to them. So I'm getting stuff together on the table, and all of a sudden it sounds like everything just comes into the ground. Like that loud too. And I'm talking 4:30 in the morning. I jump, I spin around, nothing's disturbed. Not one thing is disturbed, but it sounded like everything just comes crashing down like that. But nothing was disturbed. So
It's like it's looking for an opening to come through.
mhm.
Um,
But I think with me setting a dominance, and I've even said, you will not touch me, you will not touch my family, you will not do anything, malicious against us. And I have no problems with you being here at all. These are my rules. And if you don't, believe me, and I said this out loud, believe me, I have the means and the method to exit you out of this home. And I left it at that.
well, what does a bully do?
Yeah.
Looks for weakness.
Yeah. So, but I was told, talking to individuals, later in life about the family name and the curse. And each generation will attach itself to a male. It is that male's responsibility to better himself. And each generation, as you better yourself, if you're able to better yourself in the family name, better yourself, finally, eventually, there will be no negative for it to keep itself attached to. And it will just dissipate and disappear. So hopefully I'm on the right track.
Well, it sounds like it. What I don't know if you want to tell anything about like what's your all's next course, or
So for me,
plans on what you're getting ready to do, or
well, for me, it's our research. Our research has Kane is on his own journey now, and I'm on my own journey. From time to time, we'll come together. If there's things that I am working on, and I still lean on him very heavily. He still leans on me very heavily. But we're both on our own path now and doing our own thing. For me, it's been about 2 years now since I think it's been almost 2 years. And this is where I changed and honestly, I hate the word woo. I despise the word woo. We need another terminology for it. Once again, I was dead set against that. These things, they don't cloak. These things don't shape shift. They don't enter other realms and all. And I was just like, just stop, you know. A couple years ago, I go out, I go back out to our research area where we first started, and I started revisiting that and getting re-engaged. And I called Kane and I said, "Hey, I said, would you mind coming out?" I said, I know we've kind of already done this, you know, with establishing trackway travel pattern. We brought Mark and Larry and Cheryl up here. We showed them that it can be done. I said, but I kind of want to just do it with me. You know, I said, but I would really like for you to be there with me. Of course, Kane, you know, he's like, oh yeah, dude, I'm all in. So we go back out. I film, and this is right before dark. It's still daylight, and I show the trackway. I show where it's going to come from, how it's going to travel, and I show where I'm going to be set up, and it's going to travel right in front of me. And then I kind of show where it would be heading off. So I get my blind set up. Um, I get my gear set up within my blind. I'm on the ground. I got my back against the big oak, and I'm 30 feet, 40 feet off the trackway. And I got some shrubbery around me, and then I've got my little deer blind in front of me. Kane is off to my right, about 25 yards, 30 yards roughly, off to my right, down off my right, but he can see past me onto the trackway. And he's got his thermal with him, very nice thermal. So nightfall comes. Now I've triple checked all of my gear, everything. I've got my thermal, or not my thermal. I've got my IR, high resolution IR, and then I have my regular camcorder that has IR as well for a backup. And then behind me, I'd set up like my fog lamp to just light the area up in case of an emergency. If I'm really eating um, so we're sitting there, hours are going by. I can't remember what time this is taking place, but I hear it. I hear it coming. And I text Kane. I said, it's here. It's coming. It's traveling. It's coming. I hear it dropping down off the ridge. I hear it make a left. It's left. Now it's traveling. You know, it's coming in front of me. This whole time, I mean, now I'm jacked. I'm 100% jacked because this is what I've been wanting. I've been wanting to show that you can get in front of these creatures before they come through. If you can identify a pathway, if you can identify travel pattern and time and date of travel pattern, you can get in front of them and you can document them coming through. That was this study. So it's here. We're going to do this. This is groundbreaking across the board. This thing gets directly in front of me and stops. Now you cannot see this. It's pitch black. Nothing. I go to fire up my IR, pixelates, scrambled, screen scrambled, dead. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm hoping, praying to God, Kane was getting my sense, and he's got this thing on thermal. In my mind, though, I'm thinking true Kane fact, and he's got one leg out of his hammock, and he's snoring, and he didn't see one text. So, but anyways, it stops dead in front of me. Now, I've got my camcorder. The only downfall to my camcorder is you flip the screen open, the screen lights up bright, and it goes, ring. It makes a bell chime. That's a true giveaway.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, F it. I can open it up and I can hit record. Got it. I open it up. I hit record. I'm not seeing anything at all. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Now I'm like, no. So I flood the area. I hit the light behind me and I just lit the whole area up. And there was absolutely nothing standing in front of me. Pain comes up. Absolutely not. He was getting my text. He didn't pick one thing up on his therm, but he also heard it walking up on us as well as I did, which I do have on audio. You can hear the steps coming. Nothing there. So I get out of my blind, literally walk up 2 impressions right there in the ground. No exit. I turn around, I track this thing all the way back, halfway up the ridge where I stopped, tracking it back from where it came from. I turn around, I track all the way back down to those last 2 impressions, and there's no exit. There's no exit point at all. This thing did not move off at all. It was gone. 100% gone. What do you do with that? Where do you go with that? So that's where then once again, two things had happened. On a tracking standpoint, 2 times now in all these years of doing this, 2 times I have witnessed these things moving at night in very close proximity with very, very little sound. I mean, enough sound to where you can hear it, but I'm talking in pitch dark. I'm talking in the woods, heavy terrain. I'm talking not tripping, not stumbling, not shuffling feet, not cracking branches. Little twigs, yes, that's what I was hearing as it was walking. Little tiny snaps here and there, but nothing else. And very fluid, extremely fluid in its movement. I learned that on 2 separate occasions. But then it was also gone. Now it was gone. Now I have to look and I need to start listening to people that I think are credible in witnessing these things and these events of being there and then not being there. And then that has led me on this 2 year. That's why I'm going at that. I'm not going. I still I have proven that you can't get in front of them, establishing trackway and travel. I have proven that you can do. Now for me, it's this, and I have no choice now but to bring in the realm of paranormal or some sort of paranormal. It doesn't have to be ghosts, spirits, things like that, but there's an energy. There's an energy, and now I'm giving you, which very few times I do, I'm giving you my opinion of this, and there's energy there that is being used by this subject.
Yeah.
That allows them to do other things other than a creature, a flesh and blood creature walking in the woods. There's other things that this thing can do. And that's where I'm at now. That has been 2 years now, me going out, trying to find energy fields, posting up along trackways, finding small energy fields within trackways, using paranormal devices, not extravagant devices, but anything that will detect energy and taking it with and using it and now trying to gain this information. So that's the path I'm on at this point.
You just can't get away from the woo.
No.
I guess a lot of people, most people, when they start out, just like you said, it's all flesh and blood. But the more you do it, the more things that happen. There's more, and you cannot deny it. I mean, you can't. The very first night we went out as a group, when those encircled us, Eric, they weren't but about 20, 25 foot from us, and making the biggest ruckus you ever heard. Couldn't see nothing with the night vision, thermal, or nothing, and they're right there doing it in front of us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kane and I have been bluff charged in the middle of the night, coming full bore. I mean, I'm talking
scary.
Busting trees, sap coming straight at us, and we light it up, and nothing.
Yep.
There isn't a tree broke. There's no brush disturbed. I find no tracks at all. But damn it, I know what we just witnessed. I know we just witnessed something making sound, very aggressive sound, coming straight at us very quickly, as in putting us on our heels. Like, like this is it, bud. Like this is it. It's been a hell of a ride, brother. And light it up, and nothing's there. Nothing's there. What do you do with that? How do what do you where do you go? You know, you just have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You just have to start somewhere and look for the information. I think what helps a lot too is, Kane and I, and we've told many people this, you have to be your biggest skeptic, your own biggest skeptic. When we go in anywhere, we've been asked multiple times to go and do investigations at people's properties and this and that, whatever. We go in anywhere we ever go, we always go in to disprove first and foremost. We go in to say there is nothing here that says this creature is here. Absolutely nothing.
Well, you have to be objective. Yeah. Missy and I went to this lady's house, and it turned out to be, now there had been a couple of tracks there, but we found out this weird guy and his wife live up here, and he had been sneaking down there, and we found out where he was standing, looking in her windows. So,
yeah.
You're right. You got to rule out, because it can be, and people panic, and yeah. Understandably. Yeah. Have you ever seen any orbs, Eric?
Yeah, multiple occasions. Some I have, and this is Kane and I both talking afterwards. And once again, we'll go straight to gas. The first thing we'll do is think of, gas being emitted, out of ground, something like that. It's the ones that we witness that something has happened just prior to or just after. So there's been times where we have been out, and people need to understand too, when I say out, when Kane and I are out, Mark and Larry can tell you, when I say out, we are deep in, miles in, with nothing for miles around you, staying there. And we'll have these things appear in the woods in front of us. They'll move. They're directional. They'll move in directions. They won't. It's not like gas. It won't dissipate. It won't come up and then finally dissipate. No, they're there, and then they move off and disappear. But then it's what takes place right before we'll get what we feel is an interaction from this subject, or right after the orb moves off or disappears, we'll get some sort of interaction from what we believe is from this subject. So, and it's been multiple cases. Infrasound. I believe that I was hit with it one day. And that was an odd day because we were getting interaction in this area. And then walking through, we came up to this small, just like a little tiny open field, the woods all around, and we're cutting through it. And as we're going through it, it hits me, and I'm nauseous. My equilibrium's off. I'm stumbling. I'm getting sick. I drop. I hit a knee for a minute. I'm weak. It took everything I had to get to the other side. As soon as I got into the woods, I was fine. Kane talks me into, let's circle back around. Let's go through one more time just to see what happens. So we circle back around. As we're coming back through, it hits me even harder. Now I'm down on the ground. Now I'm face planted, and I mean I'm sick. I am bad shape. Um, can't hear the humming that's in my ears. I can't hear. I've got stuff coming out of my nose, my eyes, my ears, my mouth. Finally, with his help, we get to the other side. We get back into the woods. Um, he gets hit and he face plants on the way home. Usually we'll get out of the woods, man, and we're just back and forth with each other of things that we had just noted throughout the whole day. That day on the way home, we didn't say one word to each other, not one word. I
The
did.
one, the one, I'm sorry, the ones you all see were they solid color? The orbs.
Oh, the orb, yeah,
Okay.
yes. They weren't transparent. I mean, you couldn't see through them. They were a very solid color.
I'm.
Um,
Can you see that picture?
yeah,
That's the one I saw. Now that's not exactly because I couldn't get a picture of it, but that's the one that I saw over at Donna's. And and reason I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a skidder operator, he was the one to ask about the orbs to start with, and we've been waiting to ask you about it. And he said, do they respond to human stimuli? And it sounds like they do. I mean, Donna was. I don't mean to talk about us, but I just want to tell you about this. Uh, Donna was back in the trees, and I was on the tree line, and I was trying to get her attention without yelling, to get her to see it. And as soon as I turned my head, it's gone. The slough
yeah,
says that
yeah.
that's a cognitive thing. I mean, that's not an accidental thing,
No, no. Now within it, I've never witnessed um like any other colors within it, like you did, or any type of other like movement within it. I don't recall anyway seeing anything like that. It was just a solid mass. Now, one thing I kicked myself in the butt is Kane and I have always been, you take a picture of something, why are you taking a picture of it? Walk up on it, go towards it, So we've always done that. And one thing we've never done when these orbs appear, we've never went to it or tried to go to it. We've always just stood there like, wow. And I think the reason is because when it finally does disappear, you're like, oh damn, but then something happens,
hmm
or right before it appears, something happens. So you're kind of fixated on that, and then all of a sudden you have an orb. You're not thinking of going towards it. We're just trying to process what just took place, and now this is here, or this is here, and now this just took place. But so we've always talked about like the next time this happens, one of us is going full bore straight at it. We're going to figure this out.
Well,
So
I was down there by myself, and I knew if I looked away, it was. And I kept trying to whisper, and get her
mhm,
attention. And as soon as I turned my head, it's gone. But I didn't get bad feelings from this thing. And Brenda Harris said that she said if there's a big or a Bigfoot or an orb, vice versa, they're always together. Brenda Harris, you know Brenda who Brenda is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's been doing it a long time too, but helping people in their reservation stuff and friends and stuff. And she said they're always together. So
Believe it. I do because of what I have witnessed, before or after having the orb. So I believe that 100%.
but that was a good point. I felt like to learn. You could ask him. Do you think the moon phases and stuff affect their activity or whatever?
I do. Um, I do. It's something that I started looking at, you know, a few years ago. I started really taking notice in it, interest in it, I should say. Um, Mainly because of I look at habit, and I study as much habit as I can of them, and I look at travel and how they travel, when they travel, why they travel. Um, so I do look at moon phase. I look at moon phase through each season, and the changes in pattern per season and the moon phase that goes with them. Now, one thing I have not been able to do up here, the harvest moon, I've never had the opportunity to be out in the area during harvest moon. It's something that I've always wanted to do, because I do have travel pattern with time and date associated with it in certain areas. So I've never been able to lock down, being out there during the harvest moon to witness anything. But yes, to answer the question, yes, I do.
Um, how do I get that out there, Donna?
I'll get it.
Okay. We're still learning some of these things. Does anybody else have any questions right now that you want to ask Eric? This is a good show. I mean, they're all good, but sometimes you just feel everybody gets to relaxing, and we got a lot of interaction from the people in chat tonight too, asking questions and things that have happened to them along with what you're doing, and it's good. The only way that we're ever going to, the only way we're ever going to truly learn a lot about any of this stuff is if we do share. Now, I will say, you have to take with a grain of salt and do your own research. You can't take everybody's word at everything they say. We all know that, and so just be selective and just like Eric said, you got to prove it yourself if you want to know if it's true or not.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do, and
You may not get the circumstance.
Yeah, yeah, and we decided, very, very, very early. Well, actually, when we first started, we weren't going to be, we weren't going to have the social media side. We weren't going to dive into social media and have oh, here's what you do, here's not what you do, and do this, do that. We wanted to learn it on our own. We didn't get into social media until I think it was like our fourth year in. Really, we stayed away from it because we wanted to do it on our own, and we didn't want that oh, do this, do this, do this, and not this. And we didn't
Yeah.
want all of it. We wanted to learn it on our own. We wanted to make brain mistakes and learn from it, and gain our own knowledge, of the subject. So, but it's very hard to do, with social media, man. Unfortunately, it is a cesspool. I mean, it's sad, it really is. What hurts us, and and I don't say this, to sound, you know, brash or I'm here and you're here or anything like that. It's where I'm at with my research and the individuals that I'm talking to academics, and I'm sharing my data that I've collected through the years with academics, with the people that can help launch the subject, to the public in a scientific way. And there's a gap there. We're just now barely starting to build that bridge between us in the field and the academics. And there is a huge percentage of individuals that are killing us with the crap that
Yeah.
they're doing, on social media and the things that the matter of fact speaking that they're doing on social media. When the fact of the matter is they don't know anything they're talking about. It's the reality shows for entertainment that are killing us.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are out there trying to collect data, and they're killing us. when we're trying to sit down on conference calls with up to 50 people in this room of academics that we're here professionally as well, trying to show them across the United States, certain researchers that come together with these academics, and we're sharing our information and showing them that this is repetitive. These are things that we're finding that we rule out Mother Nature, we rule out human manipulation. This is what we have. We've taken it to multiple areas throughout the United States. The data is matching everywhere we go, and the encounters are matching everywhere we go. And here it is, but it's that other side of this realm that is just killing us.
Skier operator and Crystal both had questions on
Patrick,
or Patrick, I'm sorry, and Patrick, on the Dog Man. Have you ever come across unexplainable tracks, Dog Man, or anything?
Or what do you think about them?
Or what do you? Yeah.
So I don't know how much time we have left, but
We have until you want to get off.
so yes, I was tracking something that I don't know what it was. I'd never seen tracks like this before. I should say impression. I was tracking. I was tracking, but I was following these impressions. I'd never seen them before. It stepped across a dried out creek bed. That was still kind of muddy though on the side, and it left a print, which we casted. And I say we, Kane and I had shared it multiple times with other individuals. We had showed it to professional analysts, and it's unexplained of what it is. Kane and I I was contacted by an individual here in Ohio that does investigations. And he had asked me if I would be willing to do one for him. He just couldn't make it out that far. So he gives me the gentleman's information. So on our way out there, I call the individual. He wasn't going to be able to meet us in this particular area. So, but he gave us the information on how to get to this area. But his sighting was on his way to work. The crops were already down. He looks across this cornfield that had already been plowed, and walking from the cornfield into the tree line was what he saw to be a upright canine walking on two legs with a deer over its shoulder and walking into the woods. So he can't make it to us, but he gives us the area. So Kane and I show up at this area. We pull down this road at dead ends. On the left of us is a creek. To the right of us is a big farm. Right on the edge of the farm, back where the road dead ends, there was a guy there keeping to his bees. He had about 10 or 11 beehives, and he was keeping to his bees. So we're looking around, we're trying to find out. In this area we need to get to is on the other side of the creek, and it's a pretty wide creek. So we pull back out, we drive around, we make a huge loop around these roads. This whole area is landlocked. It's all private property all the way around. So finally we get back to that road that dead ends. We make the left to go down it. There's this old abandoned school bus right on the corner. And so we pass it, we go back down to the end of the road. The old farmer's still out there keeping his bees. I get out of the truck, I walk over to the fence. Sir, hey, how you doing, this and that? And I said, is there any way to get over there onto that big wooded lot? He said, no. He said, DNR came in a few years back, bought up that whole land, bought all the land. It's all private property. It's all gated off. You can't get up in there. So really, he said, "Yep." I said, "What about the creek?" I said, "Can we park back here at the bridge, walk the creek?" Nope, they bought the creek up too. I said, "No, they didn't." I said, that's public land." I said, "They can't do that." He said, "No, they did." He said, "From the bridge to whatever road, it's all locked. You can't even fish it." So I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know the walls, DNR, not all of them, but some of them." So I'm like, "Okay." So anyways, I get back in the truck as we're pulling back off down the road to leave. This hermit, this old guy, is out of the bus, and he's in the front lawn of the bus. And I tell Kane, I'm like, "Hey, if anybody knows anything, it's this old man right here." So we get out of the truck, introduce ourselves, and Kane asked him, "Hey, can we get over there?" And he was like, "Oh, you don't want to go." "Really? Why is that?" He said, "Well, about 3 years ago, a boy was found up in there, mutilated, not murdered, mutilated." We're like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "The papers claim he got hit by a train." I was like, "No kidding." I said, "That sucks." He goes, "Yeah, well, the train tracks are a mile and a half that way. They don't even run through there." "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, I just talked to the gentleman down there on that farm, and he said that DNR came in and bought up that land, and now it's all locked up." He said, "Yeah, they did." He said, "Did he tell you who he was?" I said, "No." He said, "He's DNR. He's the one that bought the property. He owns the property, privately owns." I said, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yes, yes, he does." So then he starts going into a little bit of other like things that have occurred around. So I tell him about why we're there, the investigation, the individual of seeing a dog man. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "There's multiple accounts." I said, "What about you?" He said, "I've never seen." He said, "Now sounds coming from over there?" "Yes, I've heard sounds." He said, "But I've never seen." "Okay, thank you for your time." So anyway, so now the investigation's dead. So coming all that way, driving all that way, we're not going to leave without doing something. So we find a small state park relatively close to that area. So Kane and I go into this state park, grab our gear, we go off trail, we're hiking through the woods, we get up to the top of this little hill, thick briar, all just dense. We find this opening, and this opening's like maybe 36 inches wide, maybe a little wider. Perfect arch, perfect tunnel going through this. There's no bear in this area of Ohio. Bear is southwest. There's no bear in this area. So we make our way through this archway, go through the thickets. It opens up to a pine grove on the top of this hill. On the ground in the middle of this pine grove are all these impressions that I had not seen until I came back to tracking whatever it was that I was tracking, not knowing what I was tracking, the impressions, and then finding the print in the mud. And that it all came back to me of that day of a couple years later of being out there for the investigation and finding these prints. And these prints were a canine paw about that big with claws in them, and then the foot, and then a ball like down here around the round heel. Never seen them before in my life. The thing is I'm talking to Wes Graham on our way out there to the investigation. I'm talking to Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles. I'm talking to him on the phone on my way out there and telling him about what I'm getting ready to go investigate. He said, "Do me a favor. If you find any impressions, take pictures, Let me know what you found. He said, don't send them to me. He said, just call me back and let me know what you found. So once we're done, we get back in the truck. We're driving away. We get back on the freeway. I call Wes. He's like, what'd you find? He said, I know you found something for the Harrison gang. He was like, tell me what you found. I gave him the description. He sends me a picture of what he had seen out west, almost identical. And it was from a dog man site. And what he had taken a picture of was the day after the sighting that he went to investigate. And they were almost identical matches. So have I seen one? No, I haven't. Do I have a picture?
I said, do you want to?
Do I have a picture of do I have a picture? I have a picture.
You do that. You do have a picture of a dog man.
It's up for interpretation. It either is or it isn't. You take how Kane and I are. The picture was given to us. We ran it through the gambit. I had sent it out to an individual that does production. His reply back to me was, one, if it's mechanical, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it. And he said, I'm talking hundreds to make it. For somebody to not get any money hoaxing it, it's hundreds of thousands. Two, if it's a human, absolutely not. The way that the rib cage is, the way that the waistline is, the way that the hips are, he said there's no human that could fit in a costume like that. He said it would almost be a little person on the upper part of the body and then mechanical legs that it's attached to, and then to be able to move in the woods. Now it's a still picture, but even at that point, he said you can tell it's moving because of the motion of the picture. There's blurred spots in the arms swaying, of the head movement. There's slight blur to it from the picture of it moving past the camera. So he said, take my information for what it's worth, and he pretty much left it at that. So I've shown the picture to a few people. The way it came to Kane and I, an individual was called out to a farm. The farmer had witnessed one, set up trail cam, could never get it on the trail cam, but he had witnessed it. He'd seen it a couple times, I believe. He calls this individual. The individual comes out. He shows the farmer shows him the area, shows him where his trail cam's at. So the individual that sent us the picture, he's standing there, takes his knife, cuts his hand, smears blood on the trail cam, smears blood on the tree, walks away. A week later, farmer calls him, says, you need to come out here right now. Hands him the SD card. They upload it. There's the picture. So one other key note, though, was the individual that I sent the picture to that does production. He said, if you look at the arm, he said, you can see flesh. Like it had been in a fight with something. And on the right shoulder, you can see muscle. You can see where its arm was laid open. A gash about like that, and very deep where the skin was filleted almost. He said, so that in itself would be very hard to fake, in a costume or whatever. So
who would even think to fake something like that, though? I mean,
yeah.
I can see them faking that they exist, but not an injury and stuff like that. That wouldn't make sense. Like you said, it'd be hard to do and costly also.
That's the question.
Skidder operator also, he said, do you ever get like visitations in your dreams? I'm assuming from any of like the cryptids or whatever, like, you know, like they just get in your head.
Yeah, I don't mean any disrespect at all, by no means. I don't talk about it.
We, yeah.
It's happened. It's happened a few times, and but I'm that kind of guy where I have to rationalize, and I have to think of everything that has occurred prior to, and then deal with it and try to rationalize and come up with some meaning as to what why I just had this vision or this dream, whichever way you want to look at it. But yes, I have. And you know, a part of me doesn't like it, uh, but then the scientific side of me needs to figure out why it occurred. You know, so and I just kind of, for now, I just kind of leave it.
But I understand just like the weird stuff of me and Don and Billy, you know, that happened to us up yonder. I'm not going to say where. That was not fun.
No, it was not.
I don't know if you saw the show or not. I'll talk to you about later, whatever. But it was just you almost feel violated in a way when something gets in your head and starts messing with it. Or I guess you definitely feel violated, but it's a different kind of violation. But
Yeah.
that anything can do that. You know, that's just more proof piled on top of everything else.
Mine is where I'm how do I explain this? My two of them were more of, how do I say this? More of showing me what's coming from the individual in my dream.
What
And
they're going to do. Is that what
the accounts that take place, and it explaining to me the account that is taking place. And so it's almost like this is, you know, it hasn't happened yet. And that's been on two occasions of dreams, two separate dreams. So yeah, but I have to, that's just me, and that's my research, and I can't stop, you know, so, and I've said this many times to individuals as well, and by no means do I want to deter anybody listening that does not do this, but wants to and wants to get out and enjoys nature. By all means, please do. Just take precaution when you do it. And when I say this, so I'm saying this not to deter anybody, but you have to be able in your mind, if you're going to do it the way I do it and go out the way I go, you have to be able to go in your mind. You have to be able to understand. You have to be able to realize that if something happens out there, if something breaks down, if something goes wrong, you're not coming out, and you have to be okay with that. And I mean this 100%. This isn't just words. You have to understand that you're not coming out of those woods if something happens. This is a creature. This is a wild creature. They're not going to sit there and pick daisies with you and kumbaya with you like BFRO wants to friggin' tell everybody that, oh, you're not in danger. They're idiots.
Yeah.
They're a wild creature. They're an animal that can do things greater things than we can even explain or understand. But you have to be able to have that in your mind if you're going to go do it the way I do it. That if something does happen and it's full on aggression, you're not coming out, and you have to be okay with that. I am at so ease. I am when stuff happens to me now, that is 100, like the night we had out there where they were around us down at Great Meadows that night at the cemetery. Were you there? Were you guys there? Yeah, you were there. That's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am so calm now in situations like that. One, it's because of my siding. Irregardless, it showed no aggression to me. It was the vastness. It was the size of it. It was seeing it and seeing what this thing was truly was, and knowing that in any given moment, at any given moment. So yeah, I'm very relaxed in situations like that, and it's because now I understand and now I know that there may come a time. So all I can do is keep pushing forward with my research. And if this is fruition, if this is telling me something in my dreams, something that's going to take place, whether it's good or bad, I've never seen the full. I always wake up, so I never see the end result. I never see the end result. So I don't know.
Um, Chris will ask another, and I'm almost afraid to ask this because I'm afraid somebody might do this and it could be really bad, not from even the cryptid stuff, but um, she asked, would the smell of blood bring it in? Have y'all ever tried anything like that? I think that's
Really.
something I'm not going to do because you're not
think-
just trying to bring those in. Anything that smells that blood could come in. But
I mean, I joked all the time, and Kane and I will do things to each other jokingly. We'll do things to each other, and like I'll let Kane go in front of me, but he doesn't know I put a piece of raw bacon on his backpack, and then I'll let him go. I'll let him hike in about 200 yards in front of me. But no, not at all. I would never ever do anything like that. Never.
Skidder operated. I also kind of comment on the same stuff about women being in the. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Women being in the woods, at that time of the month or whatever. But I'm sure it could be a problem.
Well, other animals sense it.
Yeah, other animals. But I mean, I bear hunt, so you don't not hunt for a week. Just because it's that time. You go on. But it's a thing for people to think about before they go in.
Yeah. Now, Kane and I will joke, about we've tried so many things in the woods, of trying to capture, this subject moving through or whatever. And jokingly, Kane will say, yeah, my girlfriend will walk in the bathroom and I'm pulling them out of the trash can and putting them in baggies. Like, what, honey? It's for science.
Oh, that's
Sounds
off
like
the
Kane.
yeah. Yeah.
Go out there and hang them up on a tree, But we don't. That's a joke. We don't do that. We've never done that. So, but I don't know about idea, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
We've had many trail camps destroyed, taken, disappeared. Like I'll get pictures of a trail cam wedged in a tree, and I'll get a picture of the trail cam. It'll snap a pic, and then snap a pic, and then snap a pic, and then it's ground sky, ground sky, ground sky. Boom! It hits the ground. But when I find the trail cam, it's smashed into the ground. It's ripped apart. Batteries are ripped out of it. I've hung little dog toys, squeaky toys. I put my trail cam in a tree, wedged in a tree. I've strung a rope, pulled branches down, taken a fishing line, tied it to the branch, tied it to a squeaky toy, let the branch go. It's hanging 13, 14 feet in the air. come back, trail cams destroyed, squeaky toys gone. So, and that's a running joke with Kane and I. Like one day we're going to be out here, and then all of a sudden we're going to hear
Squeak.
somewhere in the distance. So things like that. You know, we've come back up on areas that, like I said, we've ran the gambit off. We've taken like the bark off of a oak tree. We've found like a fallen oak. We've peeled the bark off of it, hollowed out a hole in it, and then hollowed out a small hole in the top of the and the bark may be like this long and about this wide. So we do a pinhole on the top of it, put fishing line through it. We'll drill a bigger hole in the middle of it. We'll put a trail cam on a tree. We'll put the bark in front of it, put the camera through the little hole, and then we'll take the fishing line, and it's like a tripwire, and we'll route it around to another tree over a trackway about 8 feet off the ground. And we've come back, the whole area, small saplings, branches destroyed, trip lines down, the piece of bark is down, camera is sideways, and a huge X right in the middle of it, and no picture of nothing. That's happened on 3 different occasions.
Yeah. Well, there's, I mean,
things like that.
Anything that can camouflage like that, it's got to be it has to be some supernatural aspect to it. I mean, there's not, I don't think there's any other way to do it right out in the open, especially for a so-called animal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
in all my time too. I mean, in all these years, I've only successfully called one in. So one thing we've learned here is you don't create your own call. You try the best that you can to mimic what they're doing in sound. And we've learned that you repeat what they do. It comes in 10-minute intervals. So it's quiet. I do a call of what they do, what we've heard in the past, of how they call. I'll do a call. You wait 10 minutes. It replied back. Wait 10 minutes. I do another call. Wait 10 minutes. It calls back, but now it's closer. Now, this was behind Kane's cabin up on the ridge. So I did the first call. 10 minutes later, it does a call. So then 10 minutes after that, I do a call. 10 minutes after that, it called back, but now it's closer. 10 minutes after that, I do a call. 10 minutes after that, it does a call. Now it's even closer. This is in the middle of the night. This is down in Hocking Hills, Wayne National. It's very, very rough terrain. This thing is traveling through rough terrain in the middle of the night coming at us. This took a very long time. I did 4 calls. It did 4 calls. On my 5th call, or I'm sorry, I did 3 calls. It did its 4th call. I did not do a call back on my 5th time. I climb in the hammock. Now, but we know it's coming at us. It's there. It's close. Kane's in his hammock. I'm in my hammock. 20 minutes goes by. I'm talking yards, just yards, right above us. So it was us. It was the top of the ridge, and then a gas line. This tree breaking that it did. Well, it took a branch and just shattered the branch on a tree. And then it walked past us. We were completely dark, had no fire, no nothing. And this thing walked within feet, right past us, right past our hammocks. That was the second time when I was talking about hearing these things and how fluid they are at night and how they walk. This thing walked. It was unbelievable how it was traveling. But the distance that it traveled and the time that it traveled was just unreal. Just unreal.
Well, it's just like I was referring to, like to hunting deer, bear, whatever. I mean, there's no way we can cover the ground they cover. You know, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, they're here and then once they start running, you might as well forget
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I've said that before too, that, I know with tracking them, I know I'm never going to catch up to them traveling. I know this. I'll never be able to catch them when I'm tracking. And once I realize I'm talking less than hours I'm behind this thing, or even minutes behind this creature, I know I'm not going to catch it. But my hope is it will stop to rest because I am still coming. That's the only way I would ever be able to track it down and actually catch up to it. I Kane and I debunked the whole IR situation years ago. We know animals are nocturnal animals. They can see infrared. We know certain animals can see it.
Yep.
If you take an IR camera in the middle of the night and you're standing in your backyard and you got your IR camera on, you cannot see that IR light. But if you have somebody standing beside you and they have an IR camera and it's turned on, you are looking at their IR light and it looks like a regular flashlight lit up in the backyard. That's what the animals see. That's how they see it. It'd be no different than you and I standing in the middle of pitch dark and kicking on a flashlight. That's how they see IR. So yes, when it comes to trail cams, they can. Since then, that is why we have gotten away from the trail cams, and now we put up motion lights with um, um, just regular cameras, um, timestamp cameras, something that does not emit IR. The motion lights, if set up properly within a trackway, as they travel through, they travel past the motion light. The motion light will kick on behind them. Second motion light in front of them will then kick on, and then the regular camera will hit them. Motion lights do carry IR as well, but it's very low light, very 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 low. Not like a Trump cam. So that's what I use now. I do have IR cameras, and I will use them if I know I'm in close vicinity of it, to where I know I can kick that IR on and it's there. But that's the only time I will use it. It's thermals now more than anything.
I got some pictures I want to show you one day. We'll get you on here with me, Donna, some trail cam stuff. I want you to see. I'm not going to say where it was at, but we'll get you to look at it and see what you think on it. I was making a note so I won't forget. I'm getting old, I forget.
You just told Joe right there. You agreed to what Joe said. You just said, I'm getting
Oh, that's
old.
Joe. That don't matter.
Joe said we was too old.
Yeah. Y'all too old.
Oh, I still run them ridges like a bill again.
That's what I was going to tell him. I ain't no way he can keep up with me. Write that down. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? This has been a good show. Eric's very knowledgeable, and I mean that they share. We're gonna have Kane on too. The fact that people will share. Now, there's things that they're not going to share, and I don't blame them because they work too hard to get it, and just giving it away for somebody that's not done the footwork. I don't blame them.
Exactly.
But we appreciate everything you've talked about tonight, and I'm sure a lot of people have been making notes too. Anybody got any questions or anything else you want to talk about, Eric? I'm not trying to get off. If you want to stay, we'll stay. You get tired of talking. Have they gifted you?
Have they gifted me?
Yeah.
No. Now, I'm sure when you have Kane on, he'll have his own things to talk about. But me personally, I don't leave gifts. I keep everything at a natural state. I don't add or take away. The reason I don't is because we lost our area because of that. The BFRO here in this state came in and not knowing their asses from a hole in the ground in every state the BFRO is in. They came in and added and took away. And I will tell you right now, if that happens in your research area, they will they will disappear. Um, you will lose every bit of research that you've had up to that point.
when they
They will be gone.
when they come in and start putting things out and
They started adding to structures. Um, and like I said, not everything out there is created by these creatures. And we had been out there long enough, collected enough data. We knew what structures to pay attention to. And unfortunately, a few of them, they got these individuals added and took away from. They started leaving food. Now, whether or not the food, I don't know. I don't do that. But when they took away and added and took away from these certain structures, it destroyed it, and it destroyed our research. And it took us a very very long time to get back to then finding them again, finding their new trackway, establishing travel pattern again. Took a very long time. It took a year. It took a year of we actually left the area. We had to. At that point at that point in our research, we actually had people that would follow us and try to see where we were going and where how we were going into these areas to do our research. It got to the point of where we would have to park like a mile and a half away and hike into the woods there and loop all the way around, all the way back to where then we were doing our research. But then eventually they found out where we were at, and yeah, they so we left that area for God 3 years, and decided to go back one weekend just to walk around, just to look. And we could tell very quickly that nobody had been up there for quite some time, and so we started revisiting that area a little more. And then I started really re-engaging and trying to find their trackways again. I did, and then we started looking at travel patterns, and then that's when Kane came to me, and I'm very close chested with my research, and Kane knows this, and he said, "Hey, look," he said, we need to show people that we can do this. We need to show people that you can establish a trackway and we can establish travel pattern and we can get in front of it. And I said, okay, that's fine, but it's not just going to be anything. And then that's when we decided to have Mark and Larry and Cheryl come up. And Mark and Larry and Cheryl, they can tell you that full 4 days and nights of what took place. Um, so we captured some of the what I feel is some of the best audio out there. Um, so yeah, that was. But it took a very long time to get, and so I tell people, they will change everything in a heartbeat. They will in a blink of an eye. So me personally, do I keep everything at an
I thought you cut out. I had lost something on my screen where it wasn't in here a couple weeks. I finally found it. Um,
Did you show the pictures that he sent you?
did I find them?
You found them on your phone. I didn't know if you found them on the computer or not.
Hold on just a minute, Eric. I didn't see the pictures on the phone. I want to ask you about a picture after this is over too. I'm gonna leave it up. Don't let me forget that. I've got a question. I want to see if you have any idea about what it is. Messages.
Eric, I was going to ask you. You know, what was it? A couple of weeks before we went on the trip, I sent Carla a thing and was asking her about all the sightings that was supposed to have been in Ohio.
Yeah. So there's, I have what I believe is a travel route for them coming from Pennsylvania, far northeastern Ohio, going into Pennsylvania, and then up into New York, coming down from New York, Pennsylvania, down into Ohio, the Eastern Corridor, um, far east, Coshocton area, all of that. It comes down Eastern Corridor, hangs a right, goes down into Wayne National, goes across the southern portion of Ohio, and then dips down into West Virginia and Kentucky. So these travel the way that these things, the sightings were on all the cases, um, from the first sighting to the last sighting, and how it was traveling. I believe that there was a couple individuals that seen something. Yes, um, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I believe they saw one. Yes, the the other ones, I'm not quite sure. Once again, up in that area, you do up in the far northeastern corridor. I think we do get some rogue bear, but I am a huge. We get black bear. Okay, so black bear standing up, head height is maybe 6.5 head height, a shoulder width of maybe 32 inches wide,
Right.
maybe a little more. They're not big black bear. I mean, even our southern Ohio black bear, the ones up north will dwarf the ones in southern Ohio. So I can't say that all they saw bear. I don't think that they saw, you know,
That
a
many
big.
sightings.
Yeah, and that's just me looking at travel. It's me looking at the terrain up in that area. Now, obviously, you can travel wherever you want in the middle of the night, and these things can go wherever they want to in the middle of the night,
Right.
and they do, through open fields and everything else. So, but the direction that they were coming from just doesn't add up,
Oh,
So, but that's my personal opinion on it.
well, that's why I decided I was going to check with Miss Carla and get her to check with you to see what you thought about it. Because I thought, well, that's an awful lot of sightings.
Yeah, yeah, that's like you picking my brain now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have they stolen anything from you when you're
Oh,
out?
well,
Shooting?
we it would be very hard to say a person took them because of the areas that we were in when we left things. Um, Kane had about a 2 foot long log, hollowed out front to back.
Mm-hmm.
He takes, um, he fills the back end with like whatever it was. I forget what it was, like styrofoam or whatever. Paints it black, whatever. Stuffs the back end. Puts his trail cam down in the front of it. But we use aircraft cable at work to hang heavy stuff with. So he takes the aircraft cable and he takes it through the log, around out of the front of the log. We dug down there's a tree, it's on the side of a hill. There's this tree. So we dig out right beside the base of the tree. and we stuffed this log down inside where we dug out. And then we buried the top of it. And then we took the aircraft cable, we wrapped it, dug out around the tree, took the aircraft cable, put it in the little ditch line, locked it together, and then buried it. Put leaves, everything on top of it. I'm telling you, this thing was camouflaged. We walked back like 20 feet, turned around, and you couldn't see it. That's how camouflaged it was.
Wow.
We come back the next week. The log is down the ridge. The trail cam is gone, and the aircraft cable, which is 1/4 inch thick, looked like it was bit in half, like just and
Wow.
just yeah. That was and my recorder. I had it's a disconnect box for like your air conditioner out back. You got the disconnect box.
Uh-huh.
I had a disconnect box. I had it down off the hill over, and I pushed my way through these really thick, gnarly briars, man. And in the middle of it was a little pine tree, and I screwed the disconnect box to it, and I put my recorder in, push play or record, and I closed it, and I left. The disconnect box, the door was ripped off, the recorder was gone. Kane's log was down the hill. The aircraft cable was ripped apart, and his trail cam's gone. So, like I said, we know that area. We know we'll come into that area. If somebody found both of them, good on them. Good on them. Well played. But I don't think it was human. I think it was. I think it was this subject. I believe there's been multiple
You leave
times.
it there.
Yeah, they've watched us multiple times. There was a trunk, rotted out trunk stump, and we had just gotten in. We were actually still walking to our research area in the woods, and I take my camera, and part of the stump was like cracked, a V. So I put my camera and my camcorder down inside the stump, and the lens facing out of this V. We walk away. It's recording. We walk away. I kid you not. Less than 10 minutes, you hear walking behind the trunk. The stump walks up to the stump. You hear my camera. You hear something tap my camera, and then you see my camera go. And then you hear walking away, but walking towards the direction we had just went.
Right.
Didn't pick it up on camera, but you could hear it walking away from the stump and walking in the direction we were headed. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy. But it's apparent that they don't like to be recorded or messed with.
That is when we went back to get the camcorder. That's when we found the bigger print than what my sighting was.
Right.
The impressions we found in the ground were 24 inches long and roughly 14 inches wide.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's the alpha. That's like cartoonish. When you say a size like that, I mean that's there's no way in hell. You're full of crap. Absolutely not. It was there. It was there. They were that size. It was bipedal. So yeah.
Right up there where that first thing happened to us, that's our hunting area too, and Jim and I had to go up there top of the mountain to look for a dog, and as soon as I get out of the truck, there was a print about the same size as a perfect print, like right there on the side, where it mud, where it was muddy there on the side, perfect. I couldn't stop. Had to go get the dogs, and forgot all about it. you know, because then you're trying to pack dogs, you know what I'm saying? And I never did get to get it about made me sick. But things just get busy and you just can't remember, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One of the greatest friends Kane and I had ever seen. We were maybe a month into this, literally, and we're up on top of this ridge. It's February, and Kane is just mind blown. Who in the hell would have a child up here in the middle of winter,
Yeah.
barefoot? He couldn't get that out of his head. Like, who in the hell would have a child up here running around barefoot? And it was perfect impressions, prints, not prints in the mud.
Yep.
And they were, you know, we would put it as like a 11 or a 12-year-old, you know, a size 8, a size 9, you know, youth footprint, you know, and they were perfect in the mud, you know. And Kane was like, who would do this? Like, what parent would let their kid do this here? They wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't. So, and then they were the best prints we had ever seen.
That's
You
what,
know?
but it was just one. I never could find the other one. I don't know if it went up a tree or what, but it was that was confusing to me because I couldn't find the other print, or it jumped so far that I didn't find it.
Yeah, judging. I've said that so many times.
Mm-hmm.
I even told Spencer, get out of your own head. Stop thinking like a human.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I mean, it's human nature. You know, well, I wouldn't do that. That's not what I would do. Why would I? You wouldn't go that way. I would go this way. Well, that's why you're not finding what you think you should be finding. Get out of your own head. Stop thinking like a human. Step back. Absorb what you're seeing. Take nature in. Start looking at things. Start understanding pattern. Start understanding movement of known animals. Do your research on known animals. Pay attention to how known animals travel, what they do, how they do it, when they do it, not necessarily why they do it, but when they do it. Understand known animals. Before I go into an area, I study topos. I know the terrain, I know the vegetation, I know the water source, and I know the known animals in the area. I know the closest town, I know the closest subdivision, I know the closest park, I know the closest um uh trails, hiking trails. These are things that I know before I go into that area. I know the weather. I know the past weather. A month prior to me getting there, I look at the weather the last month of that season and what was in that area. Sometimes I go farther back than that, but I know that area. I know the harshness of the winters. I know the harshness of the springs, summers, and falls of that area. This is research, people. This is research. This is what you have to do. If you're going to sit there and say, I'm a researcher, do this. This is research. So,
If you
yes,
don't,
whoever made that comment,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just like, if you don't do that stuff, you don't know if there's any change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're done told everybody. You know, you can't recognize change if you don't know what was there before.
100%. 100%. But you have to get out of your own head. Stop thinking like a human. Stop thinking I wouldn't do that. But that doesn't make sense. Well, no, it doesn't make sense to them of what you're doing. Oh.
We don't live out there
Right.
either, you know, and
it's not our home.
But has anybody else got any more questions? Well, I'm sure we'll have a part 2.
Y'all have come up with some good questions tonight.
Yeah, it's been a good show. Really good show, Eric.
Yeah, it has.
And
enjoyed it.
The chat being involved helps a lot too, because you know they're interested in what you got to say, and that's good. Thank y'all.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do.
You got anything else that you want to talk about before we get off? I mean, I don't want to drag it out, but I'll sit and listen to you forever. You know that. Me and Donna.
No, I think we covered some pretty good ground.
Yeah, that's true, Skidder operator. You got to remember that they are not human.
Yeah.
Oh, he said something about there too. He said one track is a gift. I mean, maybe I don't understand that. You may have to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't view it that way, and that's my tracking ground. You know,
Yeah,
I step out into the grass. I'm not leaving the gift, and I don't mean that
yeah.
rudely or any way, but
I think they jump a lot and go up in trees. That's why you can't find that second print a lot of times.
yeah. And I've had them disappear. You know, I've had tracks disappear on me. Um, so, and it takes a long time to get it back. You know, as a tracker, you know, you lose a track. You know, you got to double back on yourself. You go back so many yards, you turn back around, you survey the area and the circumference around the area to try to pick back up on it. A lot of times I will, you know, but it takes a minute. And then sometimes I don't have it, you know, boredom of traveling. I've witnessed, there's things that I look at, you know, and I've said a couple of them, you know, that I found, you know, 6, 7, 8 feet up off the ground. And we've all done it as kids, you know, to a branch with leaves on it. And you grab the branch and you pull the branch and then the leaves are in your hand. It looks like a flower. You know, I have found that 6, 7 feet up in the air. But when they pull it and how they pull it, and now I pay attention to how their hands may be and how they're formed, almost like a gorilla. And I find when they do that, when the branches are pulled like that, the bark is also peeled with it versus the thumb coming around the branch on the back side of the branch. It's almost like their thumb is like that, and it's on the front of the branch. And when they pull, the bark is peeled with it. It's just little things like that that I find. And that high up. Now I know deer will come by, they'll stand up on their back hinds and grab branches and pull branches down to eat leaves or whatever. Bear do it. You know, I know this, you know, but it's in uniform. Berries, handful of berries. Walking through thick brush and following a track in thick brush, and then finding literally a pile of berries right there, and then go another 20, 30 yards, and there's, you know, a few more berries drop. You know, that's cupped. That's in the hand, and there's berry bushes around you. That's cupped in the hand, and I know I'm tracking the bipedal. I know I am. You know, and it's being dropped from my hand. It's little things to pay attention to that I've caught on to throughout the years. And the way I explain it is just boredom, just habit, a bored habit of just traveling, just walking. So
everyone, please hit the like and subscribe. That we don't make anything off of these shows or anything, but it helps it get out to other people. And
that's what we're trying.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. If you don't mind, please do that before you get off. And you got anything else there, Eric? Well, we thank you all so much. It's been a really good show, and we've enjoyed it. And thank you for the participation too.
Yes.
That makes the guests really not realize that people are paying attention to what they're saying and appreciative of it, and we are too. You got anything to say, Donna?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for watching and listening, and thank Eric for being our guest and for all the information that he's bestowed upon us.
We'll talk to Kane pretty soon, and then we might get them back together, and they can decide what they want to go over. You know, maybe some things that they haven't told yet or something, but we'll spread it out. So, but Eric, if you'll stay on, please. I guess we're done.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
They call it a night. Everybody's getting tired.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you.
I'm a southern Appalachian Sasquatch seeker, looking in a cave, looking in a hollow, looking on a mountain, looking in the water. Little bit of beep, 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 that's a bunch of meters. I'm a southern Appalachian Sasquatch seeker. We're going seeking, gonna see what we can find, gonna look high and low and around, and maybe we'll find just what we're looking for. It don't matter if it's night or day, rain or shine, we won't stop till we find just what we're looking for. Some say they might be the devil, others say they're the masters of the woods. Well, I don't know and I don't care, but I'll tell you this, I know the real. When we hear that howl as it's coming closer, and we feel the thunder of the steps, will we look it face to face, or will we just run?